This is a review of the Lumix G7 and the Sigma 18-35mm f1.8 setup. First, I'm going to talk about why I chose this lens for my Lumix G7. Second, I'm going to talk about top 5 things that I absolutely love about this setup. And at last, I'll be talking about something that I don't like, and spoiler alert, that something could be a deal breaker in this very case. So stay tuned and let's start the video. So I've been using the Lumix G7 for about the past 2 years, and although I have absolutely loved this camera right from the beginning, there was just this one thing that I was always struggling with. I tried different solutions for it, but none was giving me the desired results. The problem was of bokeh. I was just not getting enough background blur in either my photos and videos using the native Micro Four Thirds glass. So initially I tried using the Lumix 25mm f1.7, and although it does give some decent background blur, but it's still a f3.5 full frame equivalent focal length, and it just doesn't give the creamiest background blurs. So I did some research and found that the Sigma 18-35mm f1.8 with a speed booster would give me a constant f2.5 aperture and would still give me the flexibility of a zoom lens. Now, when buying the lens, I wanted to choose the lens mount very carefully, as I wanted a lens that you can pretty much use with any camera, given that you use an appropriate adapter. So I decided to go with the EF mount version of this lens, as EF lenses are among the most adaptable lenses on the market right now. Also, choosing an EF mount meant that I would be able to use this lens with a wide variety of cinema cameras if I wish to do so in the future. So you can use this lens with pretty much anything like the Ursa Mini, Canon C200, Sony FS7, FS5s. You can use this thing with pretty much any RED cameras, including Red Raven, Scarlett's, Weapon. Although you won't be able to use this with the 8K Helium VistaVision sensors, but if you have the money to buy or rent any of those cameras, this is not the lens you're looking at anyways. So the point I'm trying to make here is that this lens is like a long-term investment, and although it does have some quirks, but it still provides the best value for your money in my opinion. So after deciding the lens, I had to choose an appropriate adapter so that I could mount the EF lens onto my Micro Four Thirds body. So the adapter I ended up buying was the Viltrox EF M2, and I did a whole separate video on that, and if you're interested in that, I'll be linking that in the description down below. So now that you know why I chose this lens, let's take a look at top 5 things that I absolutely love about this setup of the Sigma and the Lumix G7. So starting off with number 5 is the minimum focusing distance. This lens has a very short minimum focusing distance, which allows you to get creative with the different types of wide semi-macro shots. You can also take advantage of this minimum focusing distance to take close-up product shots, and if you're planning to start or already have a YouTube channel, then this lens can give you a lot of creative freedom. At number 4 is the low light capabilities. Now, this lens combined with the Lumix G7 provides a really good low light performance. In fact, here is an example of filming A-roll with this lens by only using 2 LEDs. Alright, so this is the example I wanted to show you guys. Right now I'm outside and the sun has already set. There is little to no ambience light. Forgive me for the noise in the background, there's some traffic going on behind me. So for this setup, I'm using the Sigma 18-35mm with the Lumix G7. I'm recording 4K 24 frames per second. The ISO is set to 800 and the shutter speed is at 50. So for my main key light, I have a Aperture 198 shining through a diffuser. This one is set to daylight, and I have another Aperture 198 set to tungsten, giving me this side light. So yeah, let me know what this setup looks like. How is the setup performing in low light? Yeah. And number 3 is the manual focusing. The manual focusing ring on this lens is very smooth. You can easily rack focus between different subjects, And here's an example of a shot I did for a previous video. And number 2 is the constant aperture. Because the aperture of this lens is constant throughout the zoom range, and the fact that the zoom ring is super smooth, you can easily zoom in or out while recording without messing up your exposure, and get some really interesting shots depending on the story you want to convey. And finally, at number 1, this setup is a bokeh monster. Because of the f1.8 aperture, the lens produces beautiful background bokeh wide open. Even in situations where you don't have a ton of space between the subject and the background, this setup provides a nice separation and helps guide the eye of the viewer to the subject. So now that we've discussed the things that I love, let's take a look at the stuff that I don't like. In which case, the only real problem with this setup is the weight. Now, the Sigma 18-35, because of being a constant aperture throughout the zoom range, is a comparatively heavy lens when paired with a micro four thirds body. And especially in our case, the Lumix G7 is a very lightweight and easy to carry around camera. And when you pair it with this lens, firstly, it becomes very front heavy, and it's front heavy to the point that if you're mounting your setup onto a gimbal, like in my case, I use a Zion Crane V2, I have to add extra weight onto the hot shoe mount of the camera just to get the balance right. Now, if you're used to the small and portable micro four thirds lens aesthetic, then this issue can absolutely be a deal breaker for you. But if you're willing to go through that little inconvenience of the weight, then the payback from this lens is huge. And with that being said, I can absolutely recommend this setup for anyone who's planning to step up their video game. So that's it for this one, everyone. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.